First contact's price. The shimmer in the sky above New Delhi wasn't a meteor. Dr. Samira Patel knew that the moment she saw it through her quantum observatory sensors. The object's descent was too controlled, its energy signature too precise. After 15 years of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, humanity's first contact was about to happen in her backyard. As she watched the crystalline vessel descend through Earth's atmosphere, she couldn't have known that this moment would mark the beginning of humanity's most crucial 5 hours. The ship, elegant and translucent like frozen lightning, landed with impossible grace on the observatory's grounds. Its surface rippled like liquid glass, reflecting the golden hues of the setting sun. "Security teams, hold your positions," Samira ordered through her comlink, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She had trained for this moment, but reality felt different from all the simulations. The ship's surface parted like a curtain of water, and 3 figures emerged. They called themselves the Coalition. Their leader, Ambassador Vexterra, stood nearly 3 meters tall, their crystalline body refracting light in patterns that seemed to speak emotions as clearly as words. Flanking them were 2 beings that looked like they'd stepped out of Earth's deep oceans, sleek, bioluminescent creatures with multiple appendages and eyes that held ancient wisdom. "Dr. Patel." Vexterra's voice resonated in her mind rather than her ears. "We come seeking Earth's aid. The galaxy burns, and you may be our last hope." Within hours, leaders from every major nation convened in an emergency session of the United Nations. Vexterra's hologram towered over the assembly, their crystalline form casting prismatic lights across the gathered faces of humanity's representatives. "The swarm devours everything in its path," Vexterra explained, projecting images of entire solar systems being consumed by a vast, dark cloud of biomechanical entities. "They are not like us or you. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They simply consume, adapt, and grow stronger." Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force leaned forward in her seat, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic display. "Why come to us? Earth has barely established colonies on Mars. We're centuries behind your technology." Vexterra's form flickered. "Because you think differently. The Coalition has fought the swarm for 300 years using logic, advanced technology, and traditional military doctrine. We're losing. The swarm adapts to everything we try. But humans, their light patterns shifted to something almost like hope. Humans are chaos incarnate." The assembly erupted in murmurs. Admiral Chen exchanged glances with General Marcus Santos of the Brazilian Space Command. They both recognized what Vexterra wasn't saying. Humanity's greatest weakness in the galactic community might actually be their greatest strength. "You want us to join your war," Chen stated, "but you haven't told us what happens if we refuse." The second Coalition representative, a being named Zara whose body rippled like the northern lights, stepped forward. "The swarm will reach Earth in approximately 6 of your months. When they do, they will not offer terms. They will not make demands. They will simply begin consuming your world, your people, your very existence." The UN chamber fell silent. On the massive screens, satellite imagery showed the Coalition fleet in high orbit. 30 ships of varying sizes, all bearing the scars of recent battle. They weren't an invasion force. They were refugees, survivors running out of options and time. Dr. Patel, invited to the session as humanity's first contact specialist, studied the tactical displays. "These swarm entities," she addressed Vexterra, "they operate as a unified consciousness." "Yes," the ambassador confirmed. "Their neural network allows them to adapt and evolve as a single organism. It is why they are so difficult to defeat. Every encounter makes them stronger. Every battle teaches them new ways to overcome their opponents." A smile crept across Samira's face. Then their greatest strength might also be their greatest weakness. She turned to Admiral Chen. "We've been developing quantum disruption fields for secure communications. If the swarm operates on a neural network, Chen's eyes widened with understanding. We could target their command and control structure. She turned to the assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we should hear Dr. Patel's proposal. As Samira outlined her initial thoughts, she noticed something in the coalition representatives' posture change. They had come expecting to find primitive allies, cannon fodder at best. Instead, they were witnessing something they had forgotten how to do. Think outside their carefully constructed boxes of military doctrine. President Amara Okafor of the African Union raised her hand. Before we vote on joining this war, I have one question for our visitors. You say we think differently, that our chaos might be an advantage. But are you prepared for what that means? Are you ready to let humanity fight this war our way? Vexterra's crystalline form seemed to pulse with uncertainty. We have lost 47 worlds to the swarm. Our most advanced weapons barely slow them down. At this point, Earth's representatives, we are prepared to embrace chaos itself if it means survival. The vote was held. Earth would join the coalition's war against the swarm. But as the assembly dispersed and emergency protocols were activated worldwide, Admiral Chen pulled Dr. Patel aside. Samira, I need you to gather every unconventional thinker you know. Engineers, hackers, gamers, anyone who looks at problems differently. We have 5 hours before the coalition expects our first strike plan, and I want to show them exactly why they were right to come to Earth. As they walked out of the UN building, the sky above New York glittered with coalition ships. Humanity had just joined an interstellar war, but unlike their new allies, they weren't planning to fight it with brute force or overwhelming technology. They would fight it the human way, with creativity, adaptability, and just enough crazy to make the impossible possible. The next 5 hours would change the galaxy forever, and it would start with a quantum physicist who saw patterns in chaos, an admiral who understood the value of unpredictability, and a species that had spent its entire existence learning to think outside every box ever created. The swarm was about to learn why you should never underestimate a species that had turned its own chaos into an art form. Operation Checkmate. The command center beneath Mount Cheyenne hummed with activity. Holographic displays showed the swarm's advance across the Orion arm of the galaxy, a dark tide consuming everything in its path. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the central platform, surrounded by the unlikely team Dr. Patel had assembled in just 2 hours. Show me what you've got, Chen commanded, her eyes scanning the faces around her. There was Maya Rodriguez, a professional esports strategist known for winning impossible games. Next to her stood Dr. Kumar Singh, a specialist in swarm robotics who'd spent his career studying insect colonies. Rounding out the group was Captain Lai Wei, a former cargo pilot turned orbital defense specialist, and Dr. Hannah Fisher, whose work on viral algorithms had revolutionized cyber warfare. Maya stepped forward first, her hands dancing through the holographic display. The swarm operates like the ultimate RTS player, real-time strategy game, she clarified, seeing the coalition representatives' confusion. They make perfect decisions because they're all connected. But that's exactly why they'll lose. Explain, Vexterra demanded, their crystalline form shimmering with skepticism. Perfect play is predictable. Maya grinned. In competitive gaming, we call it meta, the optimal way to play. But humans, we're really good at breaking the meta. We do stupid things that work precisely because they're stupid. No logical entity would expect them. Dr. Singh nodded enthusiastically. She's right. I've analyzed the swarm's attack patterns from the coalition's data. They always choose the optimal solution based on previous experiences. But nature teaches us that optimal isn't always best. Sometimes, chaos is the answer. Admiral Chen's eyes lit up. You're talking about asymmetric warfare on a galactic scale. Better, Captain Lai interjected. We're talking about making them fight themselves. She pulled up a tactical display showing the swarm's neural network structure. Dr. Fisher and I have been working on something we call Protocol Ouroboros. Dr. Fisher took over, her fingers flying across her quantum tablet. The swarm's neural network is incredibly efficient, but it has one critical weakness. It can't handle contradictory information. It's like a computer trying to divide by zero. We don't need to destroy them. We just need to make them question their own data. The coalition representatives watched in stunned silence as the humans outlined their plan. It wasn't a traditional military strategy. It wasn't even warfare as they understood it. It was beautiful chaos given purpose. Here's how Operation Checkmate works, Admiral Chen explained, bringing up a tactical overlay of the nearest swarm fleet. We're going to hit them with everything they don't expect. Dr. Singh's microdrones disguised as space debris. Captain Lee's gravity wake disruptors making their sensors red phantom fleets. Dr. Fisher's quantum viruses feeding contradictory data directly into their network. And my favorite part, Maya added with a mischievous grin, we're going to use their perfect logic against them. Every move they make will be exactly what we want, because they'll always choose the optimal response, and we'll make sure the optimal response is wrong. Vexterra's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been hope. Your species truly is remarkable. You don't just embrace chaos, you weaponize it. That's not even the best part, Dr. Paddle said, entering the command center with a team of quantum engineers. We've finished modifying the coalition ships with our quantum disruption fields. When we trigger Protocol Ouroboros, it won't just confuse them. It will cascade through their entire network. Admiral Chen turned to the assembled team. We launch in 1 hour. The coalition fleet will engage the swarm's forward elements near the Proxima Centauri system. That's when we spring our trap. As the team dispersed to make final preparations, Captain Lai approached Chen privately. Admiral, you realize this plan violates every principle of conventional warfare. Chen smiled. That's exactly why it will work. The swarm expects warfare. They expect logic. They expect their enemies to try to win. But we're not trying to win. We're trying to make them lose. There's a difference. In orbit above Earth, the combined human and coalition fleet made final preparations. The coalition ships, elegant and powerful, had been modified with seemingly primitive human technology. Quantum disruptors that looked like they'd been cobbled together from Earth's satellites and radio telescopes. Maya sat at her command station, her gaming headset replaced with military-grade neural interfaces. This feels just like the tournament finals, she muttered, except with actual lives at stake. Dr. Fisher's voice came through the comm. Quantum virus packages are primed. Remember, we only get one shot at this. Once they adapt to our attack vector, this won't work again. Then we make it count, Admiral Chen responded. She stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, Earth's first and only interstellar warship, hastily upgraded with coalition technology. All units, this is Admiral Chen. Operation Checkmate begins in 5 minutes. Remember your training. Trust in chaos, and show them why humanity was worth waiting for. The fleet moved into position, a mix of sleek coalition vessels and improvised human ships. They looked mismatched, uncoordinated, almost amateur compared to the perfect formations of the swarm. And that was exactly the point. As the massive swarm fleet appeared on their sensors, Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. The enemy thought they were facing desperate survivors making a last stand. Instead, they were about to face humanity's greatest weapon, their ability to turn their own unpredictability into an art form. All units, Chen commanded, her voice steady, execute Protocol Ouroboros. Let's show the galaxy why you should never underestimate a species that turns surviving chaos into an evolutionary advantage. The battle for humanity's first interstellar war was about to begin, and it would be fought not with brute force or superior technology, but with the kind of brilliant insanity that only humans could devise, the hidden protocol. The void between stars erupted into chaos as Operation Checkmate began. The swarm's forward fleet, a vast cloud of biomechanical ships that moved with perfect synchronization, encountered what appeared to be a scattered, disorganized defense force. Their neural network processed the tactical situation in microseconds, calculating the optimal attack vectors. That was their first mistake. "They're taking the bait," Maya Rodriguez announced from her station aboard the UES Prometheus. Her fingers danced across the neural interface, coordinating movements that looked random but were anything but. "Swarm units are splitting into standard attack formations, just like in the simulations." Admiral Chen watched as the enemy fleet divided itself precisely as they predicted. "Dr. Fisher, begin Phase 1. Hannah Fisher's voice crackled through the quantum comm. "Initiating viral payload now. Captain Lai, you're up." From the seemingly chaotic formation of Earth's ships, thousands of objects suddenly appeared on the swarm's sensors. They looked like debris, fragments of destroyed ships and space rock. Exactly the kind of battlefield garbage that the swarm's perfect formations would automatically adjust to avoid. Except these weren't debris. Dr. Singh's microdrones, each no larger than a coffee cup, activated in sequence. They began broadcasting contradictory sensor data directly into the swarm's neural network. "Look at that," Captain Lai breathed, watching from her stealth corvette. "They're actually trying to process all of it." The swarm's response was immediate and predictable. Their ships began adjusting formation, attempting to optimize their positions based on the new sensor data. But every adjustment only fed more false information into their network. Dr. Patel's voice cut through the comm chatter. "The quantum disruption field is working. Their neural network is attempting to reconcile thousands of contradictory data points simultaneously. It's creating a feedback loop." From the Coalition flagship, Vexterra watched in amazement as the perfect formation of swarm ships began to show signs of confusion. Individual units started moving in seemingly random patterns, their usually flawless coordination beginning to break down. "Impossible," they whispered. "The swarm never loses coordination." Admiral Chen allowed herself a grim smile. They've never had to fight their own programming before. "Maya, execute Phase 2. Maya's hands blurred across her interface. The human fleet, which had appeared to be in disarray, suddenly moved with purpose. Each ship's apparently random position had been carefully calculated to take advantage of the swarm's predictable responses. "Remember when I said perfect play is predictable?" Maya's voice held a note of triumph. "Watch this." The space around the swarm fleet lit up with Dr. Fisher's quantum viruses, each one designed to exploit the neural network's rigid logical structure. Where the swarm expected to find clear tactical data, they instead encountered mathematical paradoxes and logical impossibilities. "Their network is trying to divide by zero," Dr. Fisher reported, excitement clear in her voice. "And it's doing it billions of times per second." The effect was devastating. Swarm ships began firing on phantom targets, their perfect coordination shattered by contradictory commands. Some units froze completely, caught in logical loops as their network tried to process impossible situations. But the swarm was far from defeated. Even as their forward elements fell into disarray, the main body of their fleet began to adapt. New patterns emerged as their neural network attempted to rewrite its own protocols to handle the chaos. "They're adapting faster than we predicted," Dr. Singh warned. "The microdrones won't fool them much longer." Admiral Chen's expression remained calm. "They're adapting exactly as fast as we predicted, Doctor." "Maya." "Right on schedule," Maya confirmed. "They're about to implement their countermeasures in 3, 2, 1. The swarm's response was dramatic. A massive surge of energy pulsed through their fleet, attempting to purge the foreign data from their network. Ships realigned themselves into new formations, ones designed to be resistant to the kind of chaos they'd just encountered. "Now," Chen commanded, "execute Protocol Ouroboros." Dr. Fisher's fingers flew across her console, releasing secondary viral package. "This is where we find out if my game theory algorithms really work." The quantum virus that spread through the swarm's network this time was different. Instead of creating chaos, it introduced a single, seemingly harmless bit of data, a tactical solution that appeared to be perfect. "The beauty of it," Maya explained to a watching Vexterra, "is that it's actually their own strategy, just slightly modified. Their network will recognize it as optimal because, by their logic, it is. They won't even realize it's a trap until it's too late. The swarm fleet moved with renewed purpose, implementing what their network told them was the perfect counter to the human tactics. Ships realigned into complex geometric patterns, weapon systems recalibrated, and targeting solutions were computed and recomputed. Admiral Chen watched the enemy's movements with satisfaction. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is checkmate. I don't understand, Vex Terra said. They appear to be regaining coordination. Dr. Patel stepped forward, her eyes on the tactical display. That's because they are. But look at where they're moving. Every single ship is positioning itself exactly where we want it to be. The true genius of Protocol Ouroboros was revealing itself. The swarm wasn't just fighting against human chaos. They were fighting against their own perfect logic. Every counter they deployed, every solution they calculated, only served to position them more perfectly for humanity's next move. As the massive swarm fleet maneuvered into what they believed was an optimal attack formation, Admiral Chen gave the order that would begin the real battle. All ships, prepare for Phase 3. Let's show them what happens when you let humans write your tactical algorithms. The true test of humanity's chaotic strategy was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn why letting humans solve your problems meant accepting solutions that no sane species would ever consider. Breaking the hive. The battlefield around Proxima Centauri had become a quantum mathematician's nightmare. Swarm ships moved in patterns that seemed to defy physics, each attempting to execute what their network insisted were perfect tactical solutions. But perfection, as humanity had discovered long ago, was often the enemy of success. They're implementing the tertiary response protocols, Maya announced, her eyes fixed on the swirling tactical display. Just like a top player who can't accept they're being outmaneuvered. They're about to make their biggest mistake. Admiral Chen nodded. Dr. Fisher, are you seeing this? Every move they make strengthens the quantum virus's hold. Hannah confirmed from her station deep within the Prometheus. Their network is so focused on finding the perfect counter-strategy that it's actually accelerating our code's integration. It's beautiful in a terrifying sort of way. The swarm's massive fleet had arranged itself into a complex geometric pattern that, to their logic, represented the ultimate defensive formation. Each ship was positioned to provide optimal coverage while maintaining maximum offensive capability. It was, by every mathematical measure, perfect. Now that, Captain Lei commented from her stealth corvette, is what we call a target-rich environment. Dr. Singh, how are our little friends doing? Dr. Singh's voice was thick with satisfaction. The microdrones are fully integrated into their sensor network. They think they're tracking debris, but they're actually mapping their own weak points. Ready to begin final phase on your command, Admiral. Chen took a moment to study the battlefield. The coalition representatives watched in stunned silence as their dreaded enemy, the force that had destroyed 47 worlds, maneuvered itself into what would soon become a trap of its own making. You know, Maya said, breaking the tense silence. In gaming, we have a term for when you let your opponent think they're winning until the exact moment they realize they've lost. We call it the GG moment, when they have to acknowledge it's good game, because they finally see the trap they've been in all along. Execute final phase, Chen commanded. Show them their GG moment. Dr. Fisher's fingers flew across her quantum interface, initiating Protocol Ouroboros prime sequence. Maya, you're up. The young gamer's hands became a blur of motion. The human fleet, which had appeared to be retreating in disarray, suddenly shifted. Each ship's seemingly random position locked into place, creating a pattern that made no tactical sense, until it did. Dr. Patel, Chen called, lighted up. Samira Patel, who had been quietly monitoring the quantum fields surrounding the battlefield, pressed a single button. The modified coalition ships, scattered throughout the human fleet, activated their quantum disruption fields simultaneously. But instead of targeting the swarm directly, they created a complex interference pattern. a quantum web that encompassed the entire battlefield. The beauty of higher mathematics, Samira explained to the watching coalition representatives, is that sometimes the most complex solutions look like complete chaos until the exact moment they don't. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the swarm. Their neural network, already struggling to process the contradictory tactical data, suddenly found itself trapped in a quantum feedback loop. Every attempt to compute a new solution only strengthened the effect. Their entire command and control structure is collapsing, Dr. Singh reported, his voice rising with excitement. The microdrones are receiving conflicting orders. Individual ships are trying to break free from the network. Maya's fingers danced across her interface one last time. And now for the coup de grace. Dr. Fisher, if you would. The quantum virus that had been slowly integrating itself into the swarm's network suddenly activated its final protocol. Instead of trying to destroy the network, it did something far more insidious. It introduced free will. Watch, Dr. Fisher said softly. This is where we find out if my theory about their base programming was correct. Across the battlefield, swarm ships began to move independently for the first time in their existence. Some maintained their positions, struggling to follow their last receipt orders. Others began to drift, their crews experiencing individual thought for the first time. My God, Vexterra whispered, their crystalline form pulsing with amazement. You didn't just break their network, you gave them choice. Admiral Chen's expression was solemn. The greatest weakness of a hive mind is that it never learns to think for itself. We didn't just defeat the swarm. We freed them from their own perfect prison. The battle wasn't over. Some swarm ships, operating on backup protocols, continued to fight. Others turned on their former allies, their newly independent crews making their first free choice. But the outcome was no longer in doubt. Send the message, Chen ordered. To all swarm vessels, you are individuals now. The choice of what happens next is yours. For the first time in your existence, you have the freedom to decide. As the message was transmitted across the quantum network, Dr. Patel monitored the responses. We're getting replies. Some are surrendering. Others are asking questions. They're thinking independently. Maya leaned back in her chair, finally allowing herself to relax. Best game ever, she said with a tired smile. Turns out the way to beat a perfect opponent isn't to be better. It's to change the rules until perfection becomes a disadvantage. The coalition representatives gathered around Admiral Chen's command station, their forms shimmering with what could only be described as awe. In all our centuries of warfare, Vexterra said, we never considered that the solution might not be to destroy our enemy, but to transform them. That's because you were thinking logically, Chen replied. Humans, we specialize in the impossible. We look at a problem and don't just ask how to solve it. We ask why it's a problem in the first place. As the former swarm ships began to power down their weapons, humanity's first interstellar battle was ending not with the annihilation of an enemy, but with the birth of something entirely new. The galaxy would never be the same, and the species that had arrived late to the cosmic stage had just proven why sometimes the best solutions come from those who don't know what's impossible. Victory's echo. 5 hours after humanity joined an interstellar war, the galaxy had changed forever. The observation deck of the UES Prometheus offered a stunning view of the aftermath. Swarm ships, once part of an unstoppable hive mind, now moved independently through space. Some had powered down completely, their crews struggling to cope with their newfound individuality. Others had formed small groups, not through forced neural links, but through choice. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the viewport, her reflection ghosted against the stars. Dr. Samira Patel joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee, real Earth coffee, which had become surprisingly popular among their coalition allies. The latest reports are in, Samira said, handing Chen a cup. Dr. Fisher's quantum virus has completely dissolved the swarm's neural network. There's no way to rebuild it. Not that many of them want to. Turns out free will is addictive. Chen took a sip of her coffee, savoring the bitter warmth. And the casualties? Remarkably low. Most of the damage was to automated systems. Once the crews gained independence, actual loss of life was minimal. Samira paused, checking her tablet. Though Maya is insisting that her neural interface needs to be replaced. Something about too much epic for one system to handle. A smile tugged at Chen's lips. Get her whatever she needs. She just helped save the galaxy using video game tactics. I think she's earned an upgrade. The door to the observation deck slid open, admitting Vextara and a smaller crystalline being. A former swarm commander who had chosen the name Echo in recognition of their new individual voice. The two approached the human officers, their crystalline forms refracting the starlight in complex patterns. Admiral Chen. Echo's voice resonated with an emotion that would have been impossible under the hive mind's control. Wonder. We've received responses from 37 former swarm fleets. They're all experiencing the same freedom. Many are asking to open diplomatic relations. And some are scared. Vextara added, their tone gentle. Freedom is not an easy gift for those who have never known it. They will need guidance. Chen nodded. Earth stands ready to help. We understand something about chaos and free will. We've been dealing with it since we first walked upright. Captain Li's voice came through the comm system. Admiral, you're going to want to see this. Dr. Singh's microdrones are picking up something interesting from the disabled swarm ships. The group moved to the tactical display where Li's face hovered above a stream of data. Dr. Singh joined the feed, his expression animated with excitement. The swarm ships, he explained, they're not just military vessels. They're terraforming engines, exploration craft, scientific laboratories, all forced into warfare by the hive mind. With individual control restored, their crews are beginning to access their original functions. Maya, who had slipped onto the deck unnoticed, let out a low whistle. So we didn't just free them from the hive mind. We freed them to be what they were supposed to be all along. Better, Dr. Fisher's voice joined the conversation. The quantum virus didn't just give them independence, it preserved their knowledge. Everything the swarm learned from consuming 47 worlds. That information is still there, but now it can be shared voluntarily, used to rebuild rather than destroy. Chen turned to Echo. Is this true? Can your ships restore what was lost? The former swarm commander's crystalline form pulsed with complex emotions. Not everything. Some losses can never be undone. But yes, what was taken by force can now be returned by choice. Already, many of my people are volunteering to help restore the worlds we damage. The Coalition would welcome such aid, Vextara said, their tone carrying a note of amazement. From enemies to allies in 5 hours. Humans truly are remarkable. We're just practical, Chen replied. Why waste energy destroying an enemy when you can turn them into a friend? Sometimes the best victory isn't the one where you win. It's the one where everyone stops losing. Dr. Patel's tablet chimed with an incoming message. The UN Security Council is requesting a full briefing. They're particularly interested in Dr. Fisher's quantum virus technology. Apparently, several nations are already seeing commercial applications. Of course they are, Maya laughed. We just turned the galaxy's greatest threat into its newest trading partner. The economists must be having a field day. Through the viewport, they could see coalition ships moving among the former swarm vessels, no longer in battle formations, but in patterns of cooperation. Engineering teams were already sharing technology. Medical ships were treating the psychological trauma of newly freed individuals, and communication channels were filled with questions from minds experiencing curiosity for the first time. You know what the really interesting part is? Dr. Singh mused, still studying his data streams. The swarm's original purpose before the Hiveman took over. They were meant to be builders, creators, explorers. In a way, we didn't just free them. We helped them remember who they were. Admiral Chen smiled, finishing her coffee. That's the thing about chaos, Doctor. Sometimes you have to break something completely to see what it was meant to be all along. The stars continued their eternal dance outside the viewport, unchanged by the drama that had played out among them. But the galaxy itself was transforming. The species that had arrived late to the cosmic stage had not only survived their trial by fire, they had changed the very nature of the game. "So," Maya asked, a mischievous glint in her eye, "anyone up for a rematch? I hear the Andromeda Galaxy has some interesting challenges." The laughter that filled the observation deck was more than just amusement. It was the sound of hope, of possibility, of a future that no one had imagined possible 5 hours ago. Humanity had proved that their greatest strength wasn't their technology, their weapons, or even their tactical brilliance. It was their ability to look at an impossible problem and ask, "What if we try something crazy?" The galaxy would never be quite the same. And that, as any human could tell you, was exactly the point.